Hi, this is Mike Hibbert back with another Python Django tutorial for you. As promised, this time round we're going to be covering Django template language so that we can now start to manipulate the output of the data that we've been storing in our database. So just to recap on our previous lesson where we've touched very lightly on template language, we basically set up these two pages where we'd list all of our articles in the database, and then we made a link so that you could click through and view each one individually. And you can see there that since then I've went and put some more lorem ipsum in there just to pad out the articles a bit more and for something else that I'm going to show you shortly. So with this, we're then now going to make a slight little change to our project, because our project used to keep all the templates in the main project folder. So we used to go inside of this templates folder here for all our templates. Now, as we've been doing in previous tutorials, we've been modularizing our article app, and this time we're going to modularize the templates also. So we're going to bring in the templates into the apps folder rather than keeping it inside of our project folder here. We're going to bring it into the app folder so that the templates inside of this app are stored separately from everything else, so that they can be kept in a nice single package that we can drag in and drop in any other any other project that we fancy in the future, including our templates as well as our code, which is very, very handy. So we've moved our article and articles HTML templates that we created in our previous example. There's one other thing we need to do. We need to tell Django that we've also included a new folder into the project where we're going to keep these templates. And the way we do that is we go into our settings.py, and if you go to the section that says template underscore dirs, then we've got our initial setting which we had, and then we're going to add this extra setting here, which just basically is the extra path to the extra folder that we're going to use. Once that's the case and you start your server, then Django will be quite happy to search in both of those folders and look for templates. And the reason why we're going to have two separate folders is I'm going to demonstrate something later on called template inheritance, which allows you to have a basic set of templates for your whole project, which can be applied to smaller templates which apply specifically to apps that you're using within your project. And that might not make sense right now, but I'm going to demonstrate it and you'll be able to see that it's actually a really cool thing to do and saves you a lot of hard work. So with that, we've set our settings, and we don't need to do any more changes in the framework. All we're going to do is we're just going to have a look at our templates. So our articles template, this is the one that's shown here. So the one that just lists our articles is exactly the same as it was previously, where we have a for loop saying for article in articles. So for every article in this articles array or list, do the following: output some HTML with the article ID in this reference, and then the title inside of the hyperlink, and then some of the body text underneath. And then using the same format, the curly brace and the percentage sign, and this percentage sign and the curly brace, we use end for, just to say that this is the whole section that the for loop covers. Within that, we've got a variable name. And remember, when we're inserting variable names, we don't use these particular braces because they're to signify something in terms of logic or something more complex. We use these which is just two curly braces and another at the other side, just to signify that this is the end of the declaration of where we want this variable to be dropped in. So variables, two curly braces, anything else that's in terms of logic, like if statements or for loops, that's with the curly brace and the percentage sign. So right now what we're getting is the title with a hyperlink and then a lot of text underneath, because we're also outputting the body. Say we wanted to be more brief and we wanted to have a much more simpler display, we had less space to deal with. There's a way that we can then alter the way that these variables are being output into the HTML, and these are called filters. Now a filter can do many things. There are lots of filters, and I'd advise you to go and do a bit of Google searching on Django filters if you want to know the whole full list. But a couple or two or three useful ones or interesting ones that I'm going to show you now just demonstrate the point along with this, and they are the lower filter, the truncate words filter, and I'm going to show you the upper filter as well. Just a word about the structure. If you want to apply a filter, you use the pipe and then the filter name. If you want to add another filter on top of that, it's another pipe and then your filter name. If your filter has arguments to send to the filter, it will need a semicolon, a full colon, and any of the arguments that you should send to that filter. So in the case of us, we're saying apply this filter lower, which will turn everything to lowercase, and then apply this filter truncate words, which will shorten the sentences. Given that there are 10 words in there, it'll go, once I get past 10 words, I'm going to stop printing any of the text that comes out of this variable and put 3 periods on the end. So with that applied, those filters should then shorten this bit of text. So let's have a go. And there you go. That's made it a nice summarized version, and obviously if you want to click, you get the full story afterwards, which is a common thing that you do in websites. Okay, so that's the basics of filters. Like I say, if you want to know about different ones, or what's available, go ahead and Google it. You'll get a nice list of them then, and you can kind of pick and choose which ones you think are more appropriate to yourself. But there's an example of a couple of filters. Just to quickly go and use upper instead of lower. 3 guesses what upper does. It turns everything to uppercase. So they're dead handy and save you a lot of hard work in coding, because I imagine that if you had to do that by yourself, potentially it'd be a couple of lines of code, whereas you're just adding one word with a pipe on there. So that's really good. So what's next? How about the if statement? So how do we test if things are true, and whether they should be displayed, or whether there should be some form of action during our template? Well, the way that we do that is to use the curly braces and the percent, as we explained earlier, for anything that's with logic. So we go curly braces if, and then we do our test. So in the case of our test, I'm saying if articles.count. So if the amount of items that are in the count in the articles list are greater than 0, do the following. And then I'm going to add an extra bit to the end which says else, or if that's not true, if the count isn't greater than 0, put a none to show message out. And then finally I end that with the end if tag. So that's basically the way that you would declare an if statement. And of course, if I did it right now, it still shows all three. However, if we just slightly redid that, if the count is less than 0, do the following. If not, say none to show. Well, we know that's not going to be true, so that should say none to show, because our if statement test has resulted in being false. I'll just set that back to normal. So, what's next? Well, next we're going to take this site that we've been building and we're going to apply an overall design to it. Now, I'm not a web designer, so I'm not going to show you a nice pretty design. What I'm going to show you is a template that I've created, which is inside of our Django project templates folder, not inside the article templates folder, but the actual project templates folder, and I've called it base.html. And the reason why I've got that there is because this will be the basis for every part of the site and how it will look. So what's in there? Well, we've got in there standard opening tags for opening HTML. I've got something about the title. I've got a little bit of styling just to make it look like, or just to make it more obvious later on which sections are which. And in our body, I've inserted a few divs just to add structure to the page, but then I've added these new things here. Now, like I said, curly braces and a percentage means something more complex than just a variable name. So block tells the templating language that this section of the page is going to be named sidebar, and then everything in between here can be substituted by other templates as long as they refer to sidebar as a block within their template. And further down we've got a block called content, and we end block there because we haven't got any content in there. So let's just put something in there. This is the content area. Right, now if we just look at this straight away in a browser, what you've got is you've got a sidebar with articles and admin in it, and then you've got a content area, block content area. This is the content area. So this is the basis for the whole layout of the site. We've defined these blocks so that the template language can then replace that content by any other templates that choose to override these areas. So for instance, say in this content area, if this was the front page, we might just have an image and a welcome message, and in one of our templates we would use the base template, but then override the content block and say insert an image. In the cases of our articles, we're going to override the content block of this part of the page here and insert these into the content block. So this area here gets overridden by other templates that can inherit this template. So if you think of template inheritance as a way of smaller templates taking advantage of already existing functionality that you've written in previous more complex templates. So how does that look? when you actually come to use it. The way that we tell the Django templating system that we want to use that base HTML in our articles HTMLs is we go this page on the very first line of this template, by the way, because it has to be on the first line when you're dealing with this one specific command. We say this template extends the base HTML template. How does it extend it? It extends this block. It extends this block, the content block. So we're saying this content block is extended to use what's inside of our content block in this template. So we've inherited all of the layout and the CSS and everything that we've put in our base HTML just by saying that this extends that, and that this block here overrides the original content block. So let's just take a look at what happens when you do that. There you go. It takes the original surrounding template and inserts everything inside of there, because that's the block we chose to override. So what about our articles page? And we haven't applied it to there, so let's go back to our articles template, and we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to say extends the HTML base, and we're going to redeclare the block and override it. So there we go, extends block content edit block. So another block we could override is if we just cut and paste that out of there, is we could stick in between there our block that we've already created in the other template, but this time we don't need the admin. So we've overridden both blocks, the sidebar block and the content block for our article page. So let's go and see what happens when we do that. There you go. So it puts our text for our content area inside of the content part of our template, and then we override our left-hand menu or sidebar with only one link in instead of two. And that's all drawn from one basic template that we set up for both pages. And as you can see, the beauty is that obviously we've written all of this text here for the basic template, but for the other ones we haven't had to rewrite anything. We've just basically imported it, so to speak, or overrided it, and told it that, you know, the rest of the stuff that comes inside of here is what should be inserted. And that's what we mean by template inheritance. This template from articles inherits everything from base, and then we can extend it somewhat. So that's the basics of Django templating language. If you enjoyed this video and it was instructional for you, please click the like button. If you'd like to know more, then please subscribe to this channel and you'll get notifications every time there's a new tutorial out there. Thanks for watching.